I've had brand deals as high as like 20 grand a video. I was too embarrassed to film at home because I didn't want my wife to know.
She's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I like literally get in my car. I'm like, hey, I'm going to run some errands. Like, I'll be back in a few hours. And so I think I went from like 0 to like 1 million followers in 2.5 months.
All right. Today, I've got a guy who's got 4 million followers across all these platforms. And it's funny because I remember him buying my social media course a long time ago before I took it down and, we don't even really sell it anymore. But you were one of my first guys who was like, dude, like it's working out for me. Like I've got a couple 100,000 followers now. And then to see your career progress, and now you've got, coaching programs for Airbnbs. He's got, rental portfolio, quitting jobs. Like it's pretty cool to see. I've got none other than Preston. So what's up, man?
What's up, dude? It's good to be here. I've been following you for a while, and so it's kind of crazy, like, golfing with you yesterday, being a client in a lot of your businesses, and finally get to be here. Feel like Mama, I made it type moment here.
What's funny is, so we were talking about this on the course yesterday, how originally I think we first started talking was the Big Bear retreat.
Yep.
Was that the first time we started talking?
Yeah, so that was like right before, the pandemic, and, me and my business partner, we had signed up to go, and we're like, dude, we got to stay at, one of Ryan's Airbnbs, get to learn about flipping. It was about flipping, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so about flipping. And we're super pumped, and then all of a sudden, dude, like the world shuts down.
Yeah,
we're pretty sad. Like we wanted to go, meet you, network, but yeah, it just wasn't in the cards back then.
Yeah, it's funny because I had held a Big Bear retreat at the end of 2019, and it was super successful. Basically, I had 10 people come to Big Bear. Everyone got to stay at my Airbnbs. It was $5,000 a person, and it sold out really quick. And I was like, this was super fun. I'm gonna do this again. So a couple of months later, I announced it. I'm like, all right, we're going to run it back. It's going to be great. You guys signed up. Some other people signed up. And then I remember as we were getting ready to do it, it's like February, and you start hearing about this virus. And I'm like, I wonder if this might affect the event. I was like, but probably not. And I remember you guys texting me, you're like, should we still do it? I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it should be fine.
I mean, it was like a 10-hour drive for us maybe. So I was like, we'll just drive down. I mean, if we can't fly, then we'll just drive down.
Yeah. And then like maybe a week or two later, it just became apparent that everything was going to shut down. I was like, yeah, this is probably not going to work.
Yeah.
What's funny though is after that, I started doing social media. I don't think you were doing it at the time. You were just doing real estate. What were you doing?
Yeah, so I had a full-time corporate job at the time.
Yeah.
Just basically saving all the income I could from that job, and then, reinvesting into rentals. I kind of got on the bigger pockets hook, and just to be fair, like I was following you from like the beginning. Like that's how I found you, was through Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
I think I followed you when you had like 10,000 followers, and
yep.
Like I listened to like hundreds of podcast episodes at that point, and I was just like this guy kind of, you stood out to me. And so I was like, I'm going to follow him. I'm going to see what he's doing. So I kind of followed your progression and, kind of followed what you had to say about real estate. I agreed with a lot of the different things, like you're, faith-based, man.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of resonated with a lot of things I believe in. So that's kind of how I started to follow you.
Yeah. And then I came out with the social media course, I think at the end of 2020, because everybody was asking me how to do it.
Yeah.
And you were one of the people that got it. And then like, were you doing social media before then? Or you were like, I think I should just do this. What happened?
Yeah. So like I had been pegged as like the real estate guy in my circle. So like, coworkers, family, friends. And so they started, asking me about like, hey, like, how do I get into real estate? And so I would, take a bunch of calls, like I would try to do lunches with, different people, family, network. And then I was like, it was like probably like November, December, when you like, launched the course. And I was like, what's going to be like my next, move? Cause I was always like thinking, even though I was working a corporate job, I knew that wasn't going to be the end, right? I wanted to, get out of that as soon as possible. And so like, I saw that the social media and like the pandemic was happening. And I remember you talking about like, being able to like be in front of people, like that's like the next currency.
Yeah.
Especially as like the pandemics, you don't know how long this is going to, take, how long it's going to be. And so that's really kind of because I had never posted like anything on my social medias except for like, like stuff about my girlfriends in the past or like my wife. And so that's really what kind of, vaulted me to be like, okay, like, Ryan said this is important. So, okay, let's just blindly follow him and see how this goes.
And how quickly did you grow? Like you started getting traction quick.
Yeah, I mean, so I remember like the very first video that I posted, I was too embarrassed to film at home because I didn't want my wife to know.
She's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I like literally get in my car. I'm like, hey, I'm going to run some errands. Like, I'll be back in a few hours. And so I remember like I just went and parked in like some random street. And I was like, okay, pull out TikTok. I was like learning this stuff from your course. And so like I didn't even know how to edit. Like I barely knew you had to like get to the place where to like actually record the video. I think it was like something talking about like real estate, and it literally took me like 4 hours from filming to editing the video, and it was like getting dark. And I was like, crap, I gotta get home because like my wife's like asking me where I'm at. And that video flopped. But fast forward a few months, like, and that's when like the GameStop AMC craze was happening.
Yep.
Like people like are interested in this. So I'm like, let's just start talking about this, and that's really like how it really vaulted. And so I think I went from like 0 to like 2.5 or 1 million followers in 2.5 months.
That's insane. Yeah, I remember it was fast.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me about it. I was like, dang, dude, you got more followers than me. You're killing it. I'm like, what are you doing? And then, kudos to you because you found a style that worked and you just ran with it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, and this applies to any business, not just social media, but like it's good to try lots of things. Like I don't agree with people who say, focus on one thing, and then that's like the only advice they give. It's like, well, yeah, you focus on one thing after you've tried to find what works.
For sure.
Because you're not just going to like repeatedly beat your head against something that's not working. Like test, and then, oh, this works. Let me try it again. Oh, okay. Well, let me just like do this a lot.
For sure. And that's what I was doing, right? I was, I was kind of like, studying like the bigger creators, right? Like you, I was like, okay, Ryan's doing, basically like a lot of different topics, and and I was also looking at like Meet Kevin and like the Graham Steffens and like I think it was Clear Value Tax.
Yep.
And they were talking about like stimulus checks, and that's really how they like vaulted their followings. Yeah. And so I kind of followed that model, but in short form, because like I didn't really see like
none of them were doing short form.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's kind of how they grew their long form content, and so I try to apply that back to the short form stuff, and it really resonated. People got like a bunch of viral hits, and then from there kind of just evolved into talking about things that I was more passionate about.
Right. Yeah, the stimulus thing was such a big craze for a lot of people. Like that's really what got so many of these finance guys off the map. And I just remember like looking at it, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like, I just don't have the patience to research what's going on every day. Like none of my content has ever been research based. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? And I just look around. I'm like, what am I doing right now? Like, what's happening in my life? I'll look at my calendar. I'll be like, oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. Let's make a video about that.
But we don't all have 8 businesses. So,
yeah, there's a lot going on. But so you end up doing stimulus. Obviously, that portion ran out. And then what did you transition to?
Yeah, and then from there, I was just like, like sure, this is like all fun and stuff. I think everyone's like, AMC, GameStop to the moon. But like at a certain point, it's just kind of a fad, right? So I'm like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. And like I was like mixing in real estate content, personal finance stuff, like even like throughout, talking about GameStop, AMC, stuff like that. And then I was just like real estate was like my bread and butter, right? Like that's what I got into and like what I was like focused on for like the long term. And so I started kind of transitioning more into also like like that style like where you're kind of like talking to yourself.
Yep.
Went to that, and like it didn't work out for the first like few videos that I posted, but I realized like, okay, like it's working for other people, so I could kind of put my own spin on it. So I went that, and then that started doing well. And yeah, the rest is just kind of evolved from there.
How long do you think that style is going to work?
That's a good question, and I feel like there's so many more like copycats coming on the platform. Everyone's doing it, and so I'm like, you know what? Like it used to be cool, but like I'm pulling back on it now. Like it got me to where I'm at today, so I don't regret like doing that style. And I still like will mix it in here and there just to like kind of spice things up. But I feel like for me now at this stage, I'm always like just testing what's work. I test things a lot more than I did before. Before I was just like, what's going to give me the most amount of views? Whereas now I'm like more targeted versus like I want to attract a better audience versus like I don't want it to attract a bunch of broke people. If I'm talking about like just constantly saving, right? And so that's more in line with my personal like investing philosophy.
That's interesting you say that because I've never really talked about saving at all. I'm just like, let's figure out how to make money. Let's look at new opportunities. And you put that against a guy like Graham who's all about saving.
Yeah.
He's not entrepreneurial, right? And I saw this even with a tenth of his following, where it was like when we both tried to raise money together or sell products together, I would outsell him and outraise him. And I was like, why is that?
Yeah.
And it's because like the style of content you have attracts a certain style of people.
No, for sure. Like, and that's one thing, because, as like people on social media, right? Like, I think we get addicted to the growth, right? I know like I was like that. I'm still like that to a certain degree to this day. But I think there's a difference between someone that has, millions and millions of followers, but how monetizable is that as an audience versus someone with only like 10,000 followers. I think the people that you attract is super important. And like, sure, even though I have, close to 4 million followers, like how many of those people are going to actually, end up being a customer, for like my coaching program or, something that like I'm an affiliate for down the line. Right. So that's something that I'm definitely taking into consideration. I don't really care more about that like vanity metric.
Yeah. There's no difference between 4 million and 5 million. It's at this point, it's how do we get the right kind of people watching?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, you grew really fast. And it's funny because all the people that do like the talk to yourself style of videos, it's the same blueprint. You play two different characters. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, you basically have one character who's asking a question, the other character is answering the question. It's this back and forth thing. And, it's funny because I had interviewed Erica Kohlberg on my YouTube channel like 2 years ago. And actually about a year and a half ago, we were at FinCon together, and we were just talking about different things. We had filmed on the YouTube and stuff, and she wasn't on TikTok or anything yet. And I was like, Erica, you have to get on TikTok. Like, you'll crush it. If you've already done long form YouTube really well, TikTok's so easy.
Yeah.
And she's like, what should I do? And I was like, just do this talking to yourself kind of thing. Like, it crushes. Like, you would be great at it.
Yeah.
And then, I made her a challenge. I have the DMs. I was like, I bet you if you did this, you could get to like 1 million followers in like your time, less than a few months. And so she's like, all right, I'm gonna start making videos. So she starts making videos, and then I saw she had like 250,000 followers in like a week. I texted her. I was like, you need to just do that nonstop. Like, do that video 1 million times.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, it like went way faster than I thought.
Crazy.
It was like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 10 million. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I didn't think it was going to be that good.
Yeah, because like I think it's funny because there's so many other like creators that were doing that style before,
right.
And then everyone's like, oh, this is like she built a cult following, which is awesome, right?
Yeah,
But
she definitely did not originate it.
but yeah, I think a lot of her following thought that she did, and so like anytime anyone did that style, they're like Erica, like they would tag like Erica Kohlberg, like, hey Erica, like they're copying your style.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. Like, and I'm glad. Like we were messaging back and forth as well. She's like, dude, like, this is crazy. Like I'm growing like so super fast. I'm like, yeah, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna like crush it. And now she's what, like 15 million followers across all socials. It's crazy, absolutely insane.
Yeah, she's killing it. Yeah, that's why I'm just curious, because like even as a content creator now, and in business, right? In business, you're always reinventing yourself and you're always adapting. And so when I look at all my companies from a year ago or 2 years ago, they're all different. They're all way different.
Yeah.
Like how we get deals, how like the products we sell, like the market around us, and everything's different. And I think about that a lot with content, because though I've changed a lot of things on content over the years, like, we're in my new studio. It's pretty sick. I got the white wall and stuff. For the most part, as far as short form goes, it's still basically the same that I've been doing for the last 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm just kind of wondering at what point it's going to change, where I have to like do something different. And I just don't even know what that's going to look like yet.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, because, you're like an OG, to the shorts form. Like you were like ahead of the game when it came to this. So like, what's been your content strategy? Like, and how has that evolved since like, day one?
Day one, I was on TikTok like before anyone, and I was just like playing on my phone, editing it myself, and just, I was dancing. I was doing everything.
I remember those videos with your wife.
Yeah, because I was just like, I don't know what to do. Nobody was pioneering it. And so I just started to figure out. And then I would see, like, I had my first 1 million view video, and I was like, oh, they actually like me talking about real estate and stuff. I thought it was just kids and stuff, like whatever. So I start just giving tips. And I'm starting to notice they do really well. And this was way after doing all the stupid pointing videos and like all this, stuff I used to do. And I was like, oh, this is easy. And then I found out one day that I could get somebody to repurpose my YouTube videos and my podcast. I was like, you're telling me I don't have to do any work? You'll just take what I already did and repurpose it? Tight. And literally I did that for years. And I kid you not. I mean, with no effort from me, it's gotten hundreds of millions of views, like just repurposed. I was like, this is the way. And I started to notice repurposed videos didn't do as well. And so I started doing the direct filming content. And so that was where I started batching content. I would film directly to this camera, like 30 videos in 4 hours, and I'd be done for the month. And I've been following that plan for like over a year now. So it's just like, hey, let's go film the 30 once a month, repurpose the rest, and we're square. But I'm just trying to think through, okay, where is this going? Because this is going to get boring. The fonts and the subtitles, like once everyone starts doing it, it just becomes normal. And so how do you stand out? And so I'm always thinking like, how do you stand out from everyone else?
For sure. Yeah. And like, I'm always thinking about that. That's why I'm just kind of starting to shy away from like the talking to yourself, right? Just because so many other people are doing it and like, sure, like it'll do well, but like, I'm always like thinking ahead, right? Like, it might work now, but if it's not going to work here in the next couple months or whatever, then I have to start to, think about other things. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm like, as a content creator, I'm sure I don't think a lot of people can like relate to that, but it is something you have to constantly think about, innovate, and see like what, people want to hear and see.
And look, I mean, we're talking about content creation right now, but in every business you're in, you have to be thinking about these things. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you guys some examples. Like in home or offer, my house flipping business, we knew the market was softening the last few months, and we knew the interest rates being raised was going to slow things down. Mm-hmm. We didn't expect it would slow it down this dramatically. And, we've adjusted now, but I feel we adjusted way too late. We could have done other things in hindsight that would have saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars if I would have just been like more proactive and innovative. And, it sucks and it is what it is. And I'm going to have to, live with the consequences, but like, that's what happens when you're not quick to adapt and innovate. And so now as I go into 2023, I'm really planning out everything. I'm like, okay, each business, do we think the current model can sustain through this year, right? Do we project that this is going to be okay? And if so, will it project out 3 years doing this model? Does this give us a stepping stone for a new model in a couple of years? If not, well, dang, like, should we just, like, what are we going to do then? Like, let's change this up. And that was actually why we changed, the names of our companies. Future Flipper became Wealthy Investor because we started to project out and we were like, okay, if we're going to go reach the masses with real estate investing and they think we only flip houses, does this project out well the next 3 years? And we were like, no. Might it cost us something in the short term? Yeah, but I'm going to go try and do this 3 years out from now.
Got it.
So I'm always projecting, but yeah, on the social media side, now that I train people on social media with coaching, I think about it even more.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, what do these people need who are just getting the game to like get any edge they can?
Right.
And for me, I know I used to be very complacent because I'm like you're like, yeah, I've gotten this far. It's been great. Like, I'm good. And I felt the same. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've accomplished a lot. Like, I'm pretty good. As long as I just maintain, we're good. Whereas now being a coach and having Wealthy Creator, I'm like, okay, what are every edge that we can get?
For sure.
What can we do? This guy. And the cool thing is now with having a community, they're doing it too. And they're bringing it up. They're like, well, I noticed when I did this happened. For sure. I'm like, I'll try it on mine. Let's see if it works, at a bigger scale.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're looking to grow your real estate investing business, whether you're just getting started trying to get your first deal or you're trying to scale and get to the next level, you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. We've got events every single quarter that are absolutely crazy. We've got online coaching programs where we have Zoom calls, a community every single week. We give you everything you need to know to start your business, scripts, processes, SOPs, all of it. It's for you. so that you can dominate. So if you want to learn more about how to join our community and be mentored by me and some of our top coaches and be around other students who are absolutely crushing it, go to wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a free call with my team. Once again, wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a call today. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the smartest business decision I've ever made was creating content. Ever since then, my businesses have skyrocketed, not only because we get a lot of views and we're able to turn those views into leads, which then turn into dollars, but it's also led to a ton of different business opportunities, investors, and also it's allowed me to hire A+ employees, all because I made the decision to create content. Now, here's the thing, most people have no idea where to begin. That changes with Wealthy Creator. Wealthy Creator is my coaching program for entrepreneurs who want to grow their personal brand on social media. And if you're listening to this, that's probably you. You probably realize you should be creating a podcast just like this one and developing your personal brand. We can help you. We have coaching programs, mentorships. In fact, we can even edit your content for you and run your social media account. It's absolutely crazy. So if you want to learn more about it, go to wealthycreator.io. You can book a free call with my team. So once again, that's wealthycreator.io. Start creating content today, building that brand, and I promise you, it'll be the best investment you ever make.
Yeah. Like, do you feel like, because as more and more like competition comes in, like, do you feel like, are you worried about now too many people are going to start talking about flipping? Like, do you worry about like the saturation in the social media side?
No. Here's what I think. There will definitely be more people coming in, but it'll just be harder to stand out, right? Yeah. So instead of being able to make a mediocre video and get some amount of views,
right,
you got to make good videos to stand out. So I think, and just knowing how people are, I think they'll get in and leave.
Yeah.
I think very few will just stay in it because it's not like a career choice.
100%. That was the thing. Because like when I first started posting content, I'm like, I'm going to give this 90 days, no matter like, even if I get to like 2 followers by the end of this 90 days, because I knew that how hard it was to grow on social media. Because I think, a lot of us, like my day and age, like people are like, oh, that's like, I want to become a YouTuber. Like that like being a YouTuber was never a thing, like earlier on, but like as you get older and you see like, these like, newer, generations coming up, they all like want to be YouTubers.
Yep.
And so like, I wanted to, obviously that's kind of like the end goal. It's like, oh, I get to like, film stuff about my life and, I get paid doing it. And so I kind of like saw that, but I was like, oh, that's just like so out of reach that it's not possible. But like, yeah, I mean, kind of going back to my initial point, like I just literally gave myself 90 days. Even if I got to 2 followers, I was going to, be like, I mean, I did what I did, but
yeah,
that's
and that was how I looked at social media in 2020. I said, I'm going to give myself a year. Like, and I knew I wasn't going to get 2 followers. Like I knew I was going to like do well regardless, but how well I didn't know. But yeah. I told myself, I was like, this is going to cost me a lot of money by not working in my other businesses because now I'm devoting all this time to making videos that may or may not make me money right away. But I knew long-term, like we were projecting 3 years out, and I was like, long-term, 3 years from now, what's a good decision look like? And, I was like, I think this is going to be a really good decision. I think 3 years from now, I'll be very happy that I did this. And so I made the commitment to do it. And it's funny, we've been doing these golf mastermind days, and I was telling a group last week, I was like, in business, the big thing is, are you able to maintain enough perspective in your decision making? Because most businesses and owners make decisions based on what they see right now. It's very short-term decision making. And, when you're only thinking short-term, it's like, okay, you do make the best decision for today, but is that the best decision for tomorrow? And if you're able to like go into it with a huge perspective of like, well, if I have 3 years to do this, and if I think this is a product or a service that will still be around 3 years from now, if I think this is a good, like, then you're like, okay, it makes your framework for making a decision way easier, and it helps you get through the problems of the day-to-day. Because you get freaking beat up every day in business, and you're like, dude, I don't even know if I'm meant for this. And then you remember, oh, you know what? Like, I'm only into my first month. Like, yeah, this is a 3-year process. Or, even if I look at it now and I'm like, oh man, dude, house flipping sucks right now. The or the properties aren't selling. Like, this sucks. And then I remember to look at the perspective, and I'm like, for the last 8 years, I've been pretty good and pretty blessed flipping houses. And I think the next 8 years after this, I'm going to be pretty good and pretty blessed. Like, so what does a few bad months like really mean in the big picture of it?
Right. Yeah. I think having that like long-term perspective is so important, right? Just because, I mean, for me, like I wasn't like necessarily getting on social media to like monetize it necessarily, right? Like, of course, like it's cool, like if you do start getting brand deals or like, start making money from it. But like initially I was like value. And like, I know that's something that you preach in like your social media course that I took. And like, for me, it was just like, I just wanted to multiply myself because like I couldn't afford to take all these calls, from different family, friends, there's only so many lunches you can take a week having a full-time job, having like a family.
Yep.
And so that's like what I wanted to do initially. But like, as long as you lead with value, I feel like the rest will come.
Yeah. So you built out your social media, and did you start getting brand deals and stuff after that? Was that like the first play, affiliates?
Yeah. So Adrian Brambila, like,
Yep.
you know him. So I started like seeing his stuff, and he was like the affiliate, marketing person, like king.
Right.
And so I remember, there's an opportunity to, start to, connect with him. And like, I joined like his, I think it was like his 100 beta testers for one of his programs. And so I started, talking to him and like, kind of picking his brain on like how he was able to like sell other people's products without actually owning, a product, right? Or a company. And so that's kind of like what I did like initially, just before any brand deals, because when you're small, like brands don't really care. They don't want to work with you. Because I had like that sales background. So I'm like, okay, like maybe just apply what I learned, in sales and just do it online, except for it's much easier because you have this audience that you can sell to now. Right.
Yep.
And so that's, I started off with that, and then I started getting brand deals probably, once like my following really blew up, when I started getting to like the hundreds and thousands of followers.
Yeah.
And so that was like the kind of like the main source of income from the social media side was the affiliate marketing plus the brand deals.
How, like, when you were at those levels, what were you getting paid on brand deals?
Dude, it's crazy. Like, you can make a lot of money doing brand deals. I'm sure you've done some yourself.
Actually, I mean, I've done some, but not really a lot.
Yeah. So, but like, that's the thing, right? Because, you see all this stuff with FTX, happening, and, some of these other, like crypto. It's mainly the crypto space, but, let's be honest. But I mean, there's like a lot of companies that reach out, and it's like, how do you like thoroughly vet this person's like, they're like going to pay me X amount of dollars. But like, to answer your question, I think it depends on like the following, your engagement, but I've had brand deals as high as like 20 grand a video.
Yeah.
And so like once I started like making that kind of income from like just posting a 30-second video,
Yeah, you're like, man, this is pretty tight.
I'm like, how do you like work a corporate job
Yeah.
when you do that? And so that's kind of what I wanted to do initially, was like, okay, now that I can like monetize this following, I can now, try to save up money to quit my job so I can do this full time. And that's kind of, what ended up happening.
How did the affiliates go for you?
Yeah. So that was cool because I get you can kind of like pick and choose the companies you want to work for.
Right.
And so like I would just like look for different things. And so like my strategy was I wanted like one affiliate that was basically free, but it's like a newsletter, right? So like Morning Brew, was one of my, first affiliates that I, worked with. They pay you like a certain amount per like subscriber that you bring in.
Okay.
And I like that play just because, there's so many different things you can talk about within that, because they're like a newsletter talking about like world events and like personal news, finance, stuff like that.
I had heard of Morning Brew, and then I just started reading it like 2 months ago. It's good.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing. It's like I have to like at least do it I would do this and read, use as my product myself, or like it's like a well-known reputable company, right? So that's the
Like
only
FTX.
Yeah, like FTX.
Very well known, reputable. They're on stadiums.
I know. I mean, that's the thing. Like I was talking about, like with the whole like, how do you really truly vet a place? So like, like Graham and those people getting backlash. They didn't know. Hopefully they didn't know, but anyway, like I think it just goes back to like vetting the companies. If it's like a good product or good service, and if you use it yourself, then it's much easier to sell too on the back end. So those are the only places or only like companies, products that I'll promote on my page, because I've worked so hard to build up my personal brand that like I don't want to lose that credibility from promoting some crappy brand.
100%. Well, the thing that you did good was you finally came up with your own product. And this is what I've told all these influencers. I'm like, guys, the brand deals and stuff are cool, but like start a business, fool. Like, what are you doing? And they all just want to sit back and be like, nah, I'm going to get the AdSense. I'm going to, do this. And I'm like, whatever. And then, you see the FTX thing happen. And I'm like I said, at least if a business fails, you can do something about it if you own it, right? Like
100%.
You can't do anything about FTX. It is what it is.
Right.
But, I've had lots of failures in business. And it's like, at least I can do something about it at that point. But you started coaching program for Airbnb. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, my first 4 years of my real estate journey was just trying to build rentals, right? Because, going back to the Bigger Pockets days, I'm like, this is how you build rentals. And Brandon Turner was a huge proponent of just get 30, 50 rentals that pay $200, a month. And it sounds good, in theory, but it requires a lot of capital to get there, right? You have to put a 20% down payment on a house, and that starts adding up, especially if you don't make that much money, from your day job. And so it's funny because I started coaching my coaching program because number one, so many people were asking about what I do, what I invest in, and so it kind of stemmed from, and I think you talk about this a lot. It's I started all my programs based off of what I was hearing from my audience, right? And so that's how that began, and so after the rentals. Back in December, it was December 2021 when I started my first short-term rental. And literally after we launched, it was crazy. It was it was in the middle of December. It was thankfully it was a hot month that we launched it. And literally that first month we made $7,000 in cash flow, net, after mortgage, taxes, all the expenses. I'm like, dude, I literally matched the amount of cash flow I was making for my rentals. That took me 4 years to build. And in one property, I doubled, basically made the same amount of cash flow in a month. And so from there, I went, the arbitrage model where you basically, sublease a property with the landlord's permission. And then you rent it out on Airbnb, and then, started making $5,000 a month from that property. So I was literally doubled my cash flow in 3 months. That took me 3.5, 4 years to build.
Right.
And then, I started posting about it a little bit on my socials, and then I just got inundated with DMs hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so it was also at the time where there's recession fears. And so brand deals started cutting back on their budget. And so it was kind of a wake up call because I had gone full time by December. And so kind of all aligned where it's okay, I need to start my own personal thing just because I can actually have control of it, like you said. And so that's kind of how the coaching program began.
So you guys are doing a lot of teaching on arbitrage.
Yeah, it's mainly focused on Airbnb arbitrage. And then, I still talk about real estate and, the benefits of owning real estate. Cause eventually I want, my students to own it just because of all the tax benefits that you get from owning.
Right.
And so, but yeah, but I feel my personal opinion, 95% of people should start off with arbitrage just because of the minimum capital requirement to actually get into a property versus putting down payments and also the furniture costs and, rehab costs, if you have to do that. So that's why I recommend the arbitrage for most people.
Yeah. Arbitrage is definitely super popular. I've interviewed many people who do it. It's funny because if you talk about arbitrage on, what's it called, on a reel, people just hate it.
I know. It's funny because I know a lot of people talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you get permission from the landlord and they're cool with it and they're dude, you bring professional cleaners in here, you make sure that there aren't any parties happening. You'd be surprised. As long as you pitch it right, you're a sales guy. As long as you pitch it right and frame it right to the landlord, they're usually all about it.
Yeah. No, it's funny because, well, I don't really read much of the comments anyway, but when I see just comments about the freaking no landlord would ever do that, blah, blah, blah. It's bro, you telling me if you talk to 1,000 landlords, you can't get 100 of them to say yes?
Yeah.
You will.
Yeah.
It's just that's the math, or even 10. You only need one person if you're just starting out.
Yeah, exactly. And people are oh, what if they say no? Then it's go on to the next person. There's going to be someone that's going to be interested. And obviously, at this point, I could call 10 landlords and I could get 2 people interested, just like that.
Yeah.
And it just comes with practice. I wasn't always like that, but the more you practice and you kind of start framing things in a different way, your tonality, stuff like that, then eventually, you'll get to the point where you're going to get interested landlords.
Do you think you started to become a better sales guy once you started getting on social media?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because you just had to become a better speaker and.
you have to
tough
like,
skin.
yeah, well, because I remember like when I first, recorded like my first couple, TikToks, I was like, man, like I look depressed in these videos just because like you have to have like the TikTok energy, like the TikTok voice, like Grant Cardone, like
Yeah.
you've met him several times, and you say he's like pretty chill like in person,
Yeah.
but like his online persona is like this bigger than life type person, right? Like,
Right.
So that's kind of what I learned from him and like you guys, but yeah,
Yeah. So what do you think's like the next move with this? Like, are you gonna just continue to expand the coaching? You gonna create some other products? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, like right now, like I really, I've kind of created like my life to the point where I can dedicate a lot more time to like my students, and something like I really enjoy doing, right? Like even if I wasn't getting paid like a lot of money, like I would still want to be in some sort of like coaching or, teaching, just because like I like seeing, people succeed, like, and like people like literally people are changing their lives like every single day, right? And like that's something like that's super, gratifying, humbling. But man, like the next thing, like, I have a son, I have a wife, like, maybe we'll just like kind of take it easy for like the next year and just like travel. But I mean, the next step, like, is really like, I haven't really thought about it. Like, I really want to grow like my coaching program. And like, I always like think back, like, okay, I can go and start off like another business, but would that like kind of spread me too thin now? And like, I get, time away from my family and all that. So it's always like something that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind. I just don't really know like what's the best use of my time. So maybe that's something that you could give me some advice on.
How's family life with a newborn?
So
not a newborn, but a baby.
Yeah, I mean it's fun, dude. Like people are like, oh, like, stay at home moms, like they don't do anything, they just sit at home. But like, I mean, I'm sure you can attest, like, dude, they're a lot of work.
So much work, dude.
Yeah.
I'm a stay-at-home dad on the weekends.
Yeah.
So much work.
It's crazy. Like, and I have like so much respect for, stay-at-home moms like my wife that, has to do it every single day.
You have to get her a nanny.
I know, like, but like, it's also hard because it's hard to trust people, with your like freaking child, right?
I know. But a nanny's been a game changer for us.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any nanny advice on how to find a good one?
We used social media, but
Use social media for everything.
I mean, that's always my first stop. I'm like, hey, if you're looking for a nanny, and then you get all these applications and you filter out the weirdos and you find one that works.
Yeah.
But no, it's funny because my wife, she did not want a nanny for a long time for the reasons you're saying, right? She's like, no, I don't trust anyone. Like, and I can do it. And it's like more of a pride thing of like, I can do it. Right. And I gave up my pride a long time ago with anything work related. I'm like, no, I can't do it. That guy can do it. That guy can do it. That guy can do it. Yeah. If somebody could film this podcast for me and be the host, that'd be great. Like if I could delegate everything in my life, it would bring me nothing more joyful. But she finally came around. I was like, just try it. Just try it. We'll find a good one. We'll find it. And then, we found one and she's been great. And then the last however long she's worked for us, she's like, I don't know how I lived without a nanny.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it.
It's got to be a game changer for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you could delegate a wife, then, that's like the next step, but yeah.
Yeah. You can't delegate your husband duties. That'd be bad. So yeah, I think, for me anyways, I think when it comes to family, like I think you've done a good job too of just having boundaries of like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to like pursue business if it's at the expense of this because my life is good now.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to do it. Right. And I think it always comes down to with your work, once you've reached the level where you're satisfied with your lifestyle and your family, then it's like, all right, well, working harder becomes very difficult.
For sure.
Like I know a lot of guys who they are completely content because they've reached their number and everything. And I'll be like, you don't want to do that? Like, nope. And I'll be like, okay. So if you're going to like grow a business or anything, there has to be something beyond money that pushes you.
100%. And that's what I was thinking about. I'm making a good living right now. Like I'm happy with where I'm at. Like I always think about like hypothetically, if I grew by, double or 3 times the amount of income I'm making now, like would that make me 2 to 3 times happier? And like the answer keeps coming back to no, like right now in this point in my life. But like I am a competitive person. I do like, building things. So like maybe like I'll get that itch. But like you said, like it has to be for more than just the money. And like I feel like right now I'm like pretty content. I want to grow this thing, but eventually, I might start getting the itch like in a few months, right? But I think right now I'm like pretty good with where I'm at. Doesn't mean I want to stagnate, but yeah, it's kind of like this thing that I keep juggling, being an entrepreneur, trying to balance family and all that. So
how often do people recognize you on the street?
Not as much as you think. Like I like there's like random times where I'll be at the gym. I remember like some guy was like, "Hey, like, are you the Legacy Investing Show?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." He's like, "Oh, cool, like,
Cool.
Keep it up, man." I'm like, "Thanks." And then I remember like someone like came up to me like Chipotle, but like yeah, it's funny because like you think that maybe because I'm Asian, like everyone's like, "Oh, all Asians look the same."
They all look the same.
Yeah. They don't want to be racist.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe nah.
It kind of looks like him. I don't know. Yeah, but what about you? Do you get? I mean, you're
All
like,
the time.
yeah.
No, but I guess I'm a much more not Asian generic looking. I have, crazy hair and, whatever. But no, it happens a lot. And the reason I ask is because I've been wondering this theory that I have where by no means do I have the most followers or anything, but I am on like every platform.
Yeah.
Right. And I do post so much and so frequently that I don't like, I get noticed a lot out and about. And then I think about other guys because like I had my friend Spencer Cornelia with me last week. And I was like, how often do you get noticed? I mean, you got 500,000 subscribers on YouTube and stuff. He's like, not really ever. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense because you don't really post on, Instagram or TikTok. Like
Right.
You're not on short form really at all doing that stuff. And I asked Graham, and I was like, Graham, how often do you get noticed and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And then I remembered Graham doesn't go out. And I was like, oh, okay, well. And then I started to think, I'm like, well, I do go out a lot. Like, I'm always out and about, like,
Yeah.
everywhere. And so, I don't know. It's kind of a fascinating thing.
Yeah, I mean, it might be like a volume thing too, right? Because like you're constantly like always on my feed, right?
So
like
it's just pure 6 videos a day, baby.
like even if I wanted to avoid you, I can. Like the first thing I see when
Yeah.
I open. But yeah, like I think, and also like you have all the ads from like your other businesses.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, the ads. Yeah, do you know how many views you get a month?
I mean, I stopped keeping track like a while ago, but at least like a few million per month, I would say.
I would think you'd get more than that.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's more, but like, yeah, because like I'm like,
Because I looked at mine. Mine's basically almost 1 million a day.
really across all your platforms.
Yeah, just because we post such high volume.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, but it's like, I guess like on a per video basis, it's not anything crazy compared to other people. But because there's
so much,
six,
yeah.
and then there's 6 on TikTok, and then
Right.
there's reels, and then there's emails and all this stuff. And so I'm like, yeah, I guess that volume based marketing does work.
You can't escape Ryan.
The web,
Yeah.
web. Like, oh, you're gonna go off Instagram. It's all good. What are you going to do next? Oh, you're going on TikTok. All right, I'll be waiting. Oh, you're gonna go check your email. Guess what? Bam, you got an email.
I'm gonna text you right now too.
Yep, and you're about to get a text. You cannot stay away from me.
Yeah.
So, I learned that from Cardone. Cardone, he pioneered that, and he actually said something interesting. And I hate like always having to mention him on podcasts and stuff because people are just be like, dude, this guy's just like the Cardone fanboy junkie guy. And I'm just like, so much of what he's told me, it always ends up being right. And I'm just like, dang, I should have just listened to him before. Because I always, it's just crazy what he said, that it ends up being right. But one thing was, I remember Hormozy saying this about Cardone's advice to him. And he was like, what you're doing is good, but you need to just 10x it. And it's like, well, of course Grant's going to say that. It's like, of course.
That's his marketing.
Yeah,
thing.
but then I really started to think about it, and I was like, but he's right. Because if what you're doing now you think is good, imagine if you did it not even 10x, but twice as much.
Right.
Could you do twice as many videos as you do today? And now you start thinking, well, what would I have to do twice as many? And then when you think 10x as many, you're like, man, how would I do 10x the videos?
Right.
And it's not that I was thinking with that mentality, but that was what made me release as much content as I do. I was like, well, why couldn't I release 6 reels a day? Nobody else does it.
Right.
But I'm going to try it. And then I try it. And I'm like, why can't I send 4 emails a day? Why can't I? Now we're doing on YouTube 1 long form and 2 shorts a day. And it's like, why can't I do those?
Right.
And you will and I knew this from my other businesses where I saw it firsthand where it was like back to the Airbnb example where, people, they get denied once and they quit.
Yeah.
They make one video and they quit. They didn't get a view.
Right.
And I know, talking to sellers back in my first successful business, that we got to talk to literally like 999 calls before we get one who says yes.
For sure.
And that deal will make us 20, 30 grand. And so we know the odds. And then I know in just other things, like we generate all these leads, 90% of them don't pan out, 10% do.
Yeah.
We make money. We make all this content. And the reality is less than 1% of the people who see the views will buy something. So it's like, if I know 99% of stuff won't buy stuff, I got to make a lot to get the 1%.
For sure.
And so you start to realize everything in regards to success just ends up being about volume.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what I, because I kept hearing, like Gary V, like you guys, like always talking about like content, and like more volume. And so like, as you get more volume, like more at bats, then you get better at the craft too, right?
Oh yeah.
And you get a better chance of going viral, getting stuff to stick. So, I definitely, I tell everyone that's trying to get into social media, like just post as many videos as you possibly can without completely burning out. And if you do that, then like something's going to work, like stick. And then you can just keep doing that same thing over and over. And then, what you should be focusing on for the next, X amount of months or weeks. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you guys came in here and I don't even know how we got on the topic, but it was essentially like, what are you doing? Like, what have you been up to today? I'm like, what did I do today? And I was like, well, this is my third podcast of the day. You're like, what? You do 3 in a day? You're not burnt out? And I'm like, nah, it's whatever. And then I started to think, I was like, oh yeah, I also had 2 coaching calls. Those are an hour each. That's basically a podcast. And I was like, and then I got a webinar right after this. That's another hour. So I basically did like 6 podcasts today. And so you're like, well, what volume are you willing to put out to be successful?
Yeah, for sure. Because like people, when they start, want to be, especially becoming a content creator, they think it's like, oh, it's going to take 30 seconds or like a minute to film this 30-second like short. Like,
No.
Yeah, like they think it's like as easy as just like, filming for like 2 minutes, uploading, and I'm going to get millions of views. But they don't realize like there's a strategy behind, like all your favorite creators, right? There's a reason why they're so successful and big is because they know the formula and they keep doing it.
The one thing I'll say that I like about volume was you brought it earlier, when you do a lot of it, you get better.
Yeah.
And for me, to your point, when you first start, it might take you 4 hours to sit in your car by yourself to make the one video. And me, I was the same. I'm like, how the heck do you use TikTok? There was no course of me teaching me. I was just like, I don't know how to do it. And it took time. And then eventually it got to, I made 2 TikToks every morning for a year straight before the gym. I purposely, I'd go to the gym every day at 6 or 7, or I'd wake up at 6. I'd go to the gym around 7:30. But I was like, you know what? These TikToks are important. I'm going to wake up 30 minutes earlier, even though I don't want to. And I'm going to film 2. I got to get one every 15 minutes.
Right.
And I did that for a year straight. And I got so good at making a video off the top of my head, no script. And then I got so quick at editing them on the app that I was able to do it.
Yeah.
And then now I developed that skill because I think about it, that's 700 by myself.
Right.
By the time I delegated it and I no longer had to edit, and every time I now make TikToks and Reels, they'll turn it on. They'll be like, Ryan, we got to film 10 ads today. I'll be like, give me freaking 10 minutes. All right. And I'm like, throw the camera on, and I'll just sit there and I'll think for 30 seconds. And then I'll be like, all right, here it is. Boom, 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 boom. And then it's done.
Yeah.
But it's like, you only can develop that skill with volume.
Yep. 100%. And like, I'm sure it goes back to your baseball days, right? Like I played sports growing up, like obviously nothing to the extent of being a, major league player, but like that's the thing that I learned from sports and like, just, like lifting, anything. Like if you want to get good at anything, like you have to put it in work and you have to be consistent with it. And so that's kind of what I, apply to content. And like, it's true. 100% true.
Yep. And by the way, everyone listening, this applies to everything in life. I mean, we're talking about content or sports or becoming a great salesperson and speaking and business, but you want to become a great father or a great husband, you got to put in the things that are required to do it every day, right? Like
for sure.
For the last, I guess since I've had kids, I've come home 5:30, I've had dinner, and I go bathe the kids and all that stuff. And it's like, you don't think it's hard after filming basically 6 podcasts today to go home and like do all that and still work. But it's like, you know what? Like I've developed enough skill to do it, and it's not easy, but because of repetition, and I'm like, oh yeah, I go take the kids to the bath. Like I know how to do it. I have the energy. It's cool. And that's why I'm still married, even though, because I'm willing to do that. But, you know, it's very easy for, I guess, other guys in my position to be like, well, freaking, she's been at the house all day. I've been working all day, making all the money, freaking whatever.
Like it's your job. Like
it's your job. Like that's the deal. And it's like, well, okay. Do you think that you're being a good father or a good husband with that attitude?
Right.
No, you suck. You could be a good entrepreneur, but you're a crappy husband and a father.
Right.
And I don't want to be that. Yeah. I want to be a great father and a great husband.
Mm-hmm. So like, you have all these businesses, right? So like, I'm sure you get asked a lot, like, how do you balance being a good father, you know, being a good husband, like all these things while doing everything else that you're in charge of?
Yeah. I mean, let me first say this. I am by no means the best. When I say I want to be the best, I'm striving to be the best. I want to be the best version of myself and whatever that looks like and everything. But I think it comes down to your priorities, because at the end of the day, right, if I did prioritize chasing every dollar, my current workflow is not optimal. I should work 10 hours a day and I should work 6 days a week,
right?
You know, but I don't. So it's like, okay, well, why don't I do that? Well, it's because my priorities are different, right? My priorities are, hey, I want to make sure I spend this amount of time with my kids, this amount of time with my wife, this amount of time at my church, this amount of time on the golf course, you know, this amount of time in the gym. And you start budgeting your time in these areas of life, and you start to say, and by the way, when you budget, you set the first things first.
Right.
Well, hey, if I go to church every Sunday, I'm not missing that, even if, you know, this guy wants me to go close a deal or show a house or what. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's a higher priority, right? Okay, that's number one. Okay, well, what about my workouts? My health is super important. Okay, I'm not going to miss that. All right, my wife and I go to date night every Friday. I'm not going to miss that. Tonight we're going to some enchanted thing on the strip. I don't even know what it is. It's for kids, but it's on the schedule. So I'm not going to miss that. Like this webinar that's coming up, I've got an hour and there might be sales that I miss because, you know, people are going to have questions and this and that. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not as important to me as going to this thing. I don't even know what it is for my family. But so like, that's why it goes back down to, what are the priorities? How do you fill the buckets of each priority? And basically what I do anyways is I do have the priority list. It's like, how much time do I want to spend with God? How much time do I want to spend with my family? How much time do I want to spend on my health? How much time do I want to, business is probably right after that. And then probably my hobbies, golf, you know, maybe self-development.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I used to spend more time on self-development, like podcast and books, but I definitely spend less time now than ever. But you know, look, those priorities change as life changes, right?
Right.
So there might be a season, like currently there actually is a season in my life where I am actually working more than I've worked in the years past, because we're in a recession.
Right.
There's all this crap happening. We're switching gears on different things. And Mindy knows that. She's like, I get it. You know, you're gonna have to do this for a period of time. It's not a permanent change.
Right.
It's a season. And so
yeah,
I think that's always going to move.
Yeah. And that's, you know, important to have, you know, a significant other that supports you in that, right? Because, you know, your wife could get all bitter and be like, hey, like, why aren't you spending more time with us? And that could, you know, kind of strain things. So I've seen like having a solid like foundation, like having a good spouse, having a good significant other, like makes a huge difference in, you know, your entrepreneur journey too.
Yeah. And I always want to push back too, because there's this mantra out there with other entrepreneurs I've seen where they're like, well, dude, if your spouse doesn't support you working like all day, every day, and like your dreams and careers, she ain't the one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's take a step back. Okay.
Let's pump the brakes here.
Well, you know, number one, like, let's first think, okay, take your spouse out of the equation. Okay. What do you want to do all day? Right. Oh, well, you only want to work all day and like build your business. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But it shows that, hey, if that is your priority and you don't really prioritize your wife and your kids, well, if you have, you shouldn't get a spouse who wants that, right?
Right.
Don't be with that person, number one, which is maybe what they're saying. But like number two, it just shows like, okay, well, my nature and my attitude is I value all of this above family and everything else, right? And so it's like, don't ever come here and tell me family's important to you when it's not.
Right, exactly.
And so it's just being very objectional with who you are and what you want, but you can't have it all. You can't be like, well, I want to have my family and everything else, and I don't get it why she doesn't support me, even though I told her that I would be a good husband and a good dad and I'd be there, but I'm not because of, it's like, well, do what you say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I guess I'm just kind of harsh though. Like everything seems very black and white to me. But bro, it's super dope to see what you're doing, man. I think you're an amazing example of somebody who it should not, like in most people's eyes, like be a 4 million follower content creator. You're a corporate guy who didn't want to film, who never posted on social media. You didn't have a business. You didn't have like any of these things. And all of a sudden you just did it. You're like, I'll find a way to make it work. And you exploded. And then you figured things out along the way. And then you kept your priorities in line, even with success. And so it's like to see that progression is super inspiring, not only for me, but for just like anyone listening to this, because there's so many corporate guys. They're like, dude, that's freaking weird. I'm not going to do that. And you're like, I'm sure you thought that too, right? But 100%. You did it, and it was worth it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like just getting the right people in your life, right? Like I think that's the most important thing. Like having a mentor, finding people that are like-minded, because like at first like people were like, hey, I saw a video of yours, and I'm sure like they're probably talking crap about me, like, oh, what is this kid doing? Like, who does he think
why is he talking to himself?
Yeah, exactly. And so, but like once you like kind of like block that out and just focus on like what makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled, and like you have that like long-term vision, like just screw the haters, like that's what it comes down to. But I mean, appreciate the kind words. You've been a huge like mentor like in my life, whether know it or not. But yeah, it's been great, kind of getting to know you the past few years and finally meeting in person after all these years. I feel like I like seeing you and like I feel like I know you, but like yeah, it's cool, full circle coming. And like whatever you set your mind to, guys, like whoever's listening to this, like you guys can do whatever you want. Just have to have the roadmap, find a mentor, and just work endlessly at it. So
I love it, dude. I appreciate that. Guys, go check out Preston on the Legacy Investing Show. Also, go check out his Airbnb program. We will link to all of that down below. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Later. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. Thanks for making it to the end. The good news is I've got another one that I know you're going to like, and all you got to do is click it right here. Linking it right here. All you got to do is just click it, and you're going to see this new episode that you're going to love.